Thanks, John and Krista, for that introduction. It is now my distinct privilege to host this fireside chat with Brigadier General Patrice Betsy Ross Melançon. Ma'am, I think most of the viewers will remember your awesome keynote from Tuesday where you talked about the progress we have made at Tyndall. However, for those of you that haven't, I just want to set the stage a little bit. On October 10th, 2018, Tyndall Air Force Base sustained a direct hit from Category 5 Hurricane Michael. Every single building on the base sustained some sort of damage, and roughly half of the facilities will have to be demolished and rebuilt. Luckily, it didn't take too long for the Air Force to make the decision to rebuild the base and site the newest 5th generation fighter, the F-35, here at Tyndall. Once that decision was made, the Air Force established a Program Management Office, or PMO, to repair, rebuild, and reshape Tyndall into the base we need, not the base we had. And ma'am, that's when you were asked to lead the PMO as the executive director. In your keynote on Tuesday, you spoke some about the resilience initiatives and innovation that we have already incorporated into the rebuild. As you and I both know, we were never handed a guidebook or a specification on how to build that base of the future with the resilience and innovation. We've been at this now for over a year. It's been rough at times, but we've managed to keep moving forward. I think it would be great for the next few minutes if we could talk a little bit about that journey. How did we get here?
That'd be great. That'd be great. I'd love to do that.
So we'll start off with our first question. Ma'am, what went through your mind when you first got the assignment to be the executive director for the PMO and the rebuild?
So it was really a combination of almost giddy excitement, but a fair amount of, oh my goodness, what have I taken on here? The devastation from Hurricane Michael really provided a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for an engineer. I mean, who else gets to almost build a base from scratch? Pretty exciting things. Very humbling, very professionally gratifying to have been asked to lead this almost $5 billion reconstruction effort. It's a huge responsibility. But in some ways, it was a hard choice. I really, really liked my job with the San Antonio River Authority. I had a great team of folks working with me to improve the accessibility and the quality of the creeks and rivers in the basin. But in other ways, it was a no-brainer. I'm getting, kind of close to retirement, and wow, what a high to go out on. I mean, this is amazing. And I also had a good sense of, this is really what I'd been kind of training to do my whole career. So I did feel a certain level of calling to lead a team to tackle something that was this huge.
Yes, ma'am. I can only imagine how exciting that must have been to contemplate such a huge effort, and what a fantastic capstone on a already incredible career.
Thanks.
Obviously, those were some big decisions that required a lot of deliberation and thoughtfulness. And in the midst of all that, you probably developed some guiding principles to help you along the journey. Can you talk about some of those?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So kind of first and foremost, you've got to find the gumption and also the finesse to push back on no without alienating folks. While we're getting much better at it, the military is a pretty risk-averse bunch of folks. But General Goldfein was very clear that we need to get comfortable with taking calculated risks. And there's still a fair amount of the mid-level managers who aren't yet comfortable with that. Let's face it, it's much easier to do what's tried and true. But part of my responsibility really is to help the rest of the team understand why it's imperative to move away from what we've always done and really, really harness what's happening in industry.
Yes, ma'am. I think you definitely have gumption and the right mindset to lead such a challenging and open-ended effort. Specifically when it comes to defining something that really just hasn't been defined before.
Right.
As we both know, we really weren't given a guidebook on how to develop a base of the future, and so we've had to work our way through that. So given that, I'm wondering what does the base of the future mean to you?
So I think the base of the future is one that's resilient, it's sustainable, and it's smart. I think that what we do needs to really embrace all three of those characteristics to really get the full benefit of what we're going after. The other aspect really is adaptability. We can't just think about the next few years. We've got to be thinking about 20, 50, 100 years down the road. An example is the primarily pedestrian transportation spines that we've put in several spots throughout the rebuild. While we don't have specific plans to bring autonomous vehicles to Tyndall immediately, those pedestrian traffic spines were designed in such a way that they're going to be wide enough that when autonomous vehicles do become the norm, and they will, we're going to be ready to accept those because we thought ahead.
Certainly, ma'am. Very cool. These things are going to be different and better at Tyndall once the rebuild is complete.
Yeah.
How do you see the day-to-day life for airmen really being impacted while working in this new base of the future?
So it's without question that 21st century is bringing us digital and technological improvements and impacts to our personal daily lives. And it's no different for the missions that the airmen support in their careers. The reshaping taking place at Tyndall is going to provide airmen digitally integrated resources to effectively execute the missions of today and tomorrow. In my comments on Tuesday, I mentioned the use of augmented reality or virtual reality glasses for maintenance technicians on the flight line. That digital integration is going to allow airmen to access or request information more quickly and more easily than ever before. The Air Force is going to grow with the world for the better security of our country.
Yes, ma'am. And so speaking of your keynote, one of the things that I also wanted to kind of circle back on, you referenced the fact that you're a quilter and like to bring together pieces of the puzzle to develop solutions that are greater than the sum of their parts.
Yep.
And honestly, I think you've been very effective in that way by developing and bringing together a team that's helped to formulate that base of the future vision. Can you talk more about how that vision came together?
Well, really, in a word, it's all about teamwork. And more specifically, bringing together and engaging a bunch of really, really smart people. Yes, one of my strengths really is connecting people and building those teams. So make no mistake, I did not personally do a lot of the heavy lifting here. It was a lot of those folks on my team. And really, it's been amazing. That team has grown and morphed over time. Initially, we had a bunch of reservists, myself included, TDY to Tyndall, and some great help from a group of civilian volunteers who spent weeks and weeks and weeks on the planning, developing the programming documents, coming up with the cost estimates so that we could go to Congress and have an ask that's based on some level of actual data as opposed to just kind of going, yeah, $1 billion. So it really was a group of really very talented and very dedicated team members.
Yes, ma'am. I remember those early days in the PMO with just a few of us and the daily stand-up. And since then, our team has steadily grown, and I think we're functioning really well now. I think you've done a great job of ensuring that the PMO is positioned with the right key leaders and experienced professionals in engineering, logistics, budgeting, finance, construction management, to really help take that vision of the base of the future and turn it into a reality. So I guess my question to you is, in your mind, how are you utilizing this team to really help make that base of the future vision and turn it from just the vision into reality?
So this Fusion Showcase event is a huge step for us. Other big wins include the installation facility standards that were published that incorporate the design flight elevations, and the updated design wind speeds and related structural standards. The workshops we held on coastal resilience, the coastal resilience effort, are really promising in that we have a goodly number of organizations who are very, very interested in partnering with us to pilot techniques to reestablish the coastline's natural buffering ability. We also had two pretty recent wins in the area of category management, working with our teammates at the Corps of Engineers. We were able to get approvals to specify one manufacturer for the HVAC, as well as one manufacturer for our facility-related control systems, base-wide for Tyndall for the rebuild. This allows us to be much more effective with our O&M dollars, as well as our maintenance training programs.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's amazing to see that team come together and take this vision and start to execute. I remember again, kind of back when we were just a handful of people in the trailer. Obviously, a lot's changed since then. We've made a tremendous amount of progress and learned a lot along the way. And I think, ultimately, we all want the best outcome, and that involves making those hard decisions, and even sometimes some risks.
Right.
So I think, we all know that, some of these risks and innovation tend to come hand in hand. I think we've seen that, as we've gone through this rebuild so far. Maybe what are some examples that you can point out of how taking some of those calculated risks have yielded positive results at Tyndall?
Sure. So we've solicited and resourced innovation pretty much at every level. As I talked about, there's more than one way to get to yes, and we're taking calculated risks to deliver what our Air and Space Force customers need today and into the future. Early on, we established a working group to help collect and understand the Air Force enterprise vision on different aspects of Base of the Future. As we've already mentioned, there wasn't a guidebook or a manual for the Base of the Future. We really have been learning for the rest of the Air Force and even DoD, establishing something of a standard operating procedure should another disaster take place at a different installation. So part of what we had to do was to develop the vision as we went along. There are some specific things that are now part of the rebuild, like gunshot detection and occupancy sensors and analysis that we've added at the enterprise-wide level as we're working towards developing that Base of the Future vision.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we really did have to kind of grow and adapt to tackle this unprecedented challenge, and I think that in some ways we made recommendations or got ideas and inspiration to folks that were even outside of our career field.
Yeah.
And it seems like now some of those risks are paying off, like the gunshot detection and occupancy analysis. So I think that's really exciting. So like we both mentioned, we weren't really given a guide, but now I think maybe we've created a bit of a blueprint. We could, something we could certainly hand to other bases as a starting point that they could use moving forward. What are some of those things that you think other installations could or maybe should implement from our Base of the Future efforts?
Sure. So I really hope that other bases are going to pay attention to the considerations that we have given to the variety of measures that we're implementing. And as they have opportunities with sustainment or modernization of their infrastructure, they're going to look to figure out what aspects of what we've done at Tyndall best fit into their project work, whatever that might be. I certainly wouldn't wish another Hurricane Michael on anybody. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that every wing commander has a responsibility to think about these Base of the Future concepts anytime that they're looking and implementing an infrastructure project. We're also developing some new ConOps, like the Installation Resilience Operations Center. We're going to pilot that along with the rebuild of Tyndall, and the intent is going to be to roll that out to all the other bases. Similarly, some of the base defense concepts like gunshot detection are going to become kind of just the standard moving forward.
Yes, ma'am. It's so exciting and personally gratifying to reflect back on the impact we're making at the PMO and at Tyndall. We've had some good successes, and I think those should be celebrated. But we've not been without our share of obstacles.
Absolutely.
So ma'am, you touched on the value of leaning on others for problem solving. In the community, we truly do have some of the best leaders and partners that are just as committed to us in our mission to deliver a resilient and innovative base. Can you talk about some of these partnerships and the collaboration and their importance for helping us rebuild at Tyndall?
Sure. So building the base of the future, as we've mentioned many times, it's a Herculean undertaking that I don't think anybody thought we could accomplish on our own. It's literally only possible with the help from all of our key partners, to include the 325th Fighter Wing, obviously, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Air Force Installation Contracting Center, the Security Forces Center, and not the least of which is AFWERX. They have been amazingly helpful in getting after what it means to be a base of the future. Those partnerships offer us opportunities for mutually beneficial solutions. For example, we're currently exploring the potential nature-based engineering solutions to help minimize flood damage that could occur from another large weather event. Coastal resiliency is important to more than just the Air Force. Other coastal entities are exposed to that kind of adverse weather and potential flood risks from storm surge. So we're looking for those stakeholders to join forces with us to find solutions when it comes to boosting coastal resilience. So that's just one of many, many examples of partnerships that we're pursuing as we pursue the base of the future.
Yes, ma'am. I think you're exactly right. We need a lot of dedicated people and a great team in place to help bring this base of the future to life. And you've been leading that charge wonderfully.
Thank you.
For me, being a part of a team like this has been very rewarding. And I'd like to just wrap up with this last question. What has been your favorite part of the journey to Base of the Future so far?
I think probably getting to meet and work with so many really talented and intelligent people. We've been extremely lucky with the folks who have stepped up to take this challenge on, starting with Colonel Brent Hayden and Colonel Lori Walden, fellow reserve officers who served as very early PMO directors. Colonel Travis Layton, who has picked up the baton as our long-term PMO director. Colonel Brian Swinger Laidlaw, who was at the helm of the 325th during the storm and just rotated out, was a phenomenal wingman through this entire adventure. Colonel Mike Askergan and Brian Stahl from the 325th Civil Engineer Squadron, Mr. Tab Brown, Colonel Sebastian Jolie, and Pete Taylor have helped us out tremendously to harness the power of the Corps of Engineers. Colonel Aaron Judge, Colonel Shayla Canty-Smith, and Jeff Mixon really stepped up to fill in with some early acquisition capacity for us that was very, very helpful. Ms. Pat Perrine, who was detailed over from the Air Force Civil Engineer Center Category Management Office, stepped in to help with some of that early program management. Dave Kovic, Keith Kellner, Tom Brown from the Milcon Division of AFCEC CF, and Ms. Jen Gomez from the AFIMSC Personnel Division. Contractors like KBR Jacobs, Booz Allen Hamilton, and BB&E. Those folks, everybody's just been phenomenal. And everyone has really come at this with such passion and vigor. It's been phenomenal. Lowell, you started out with us just over a year ago as a contractor. I have to say, I'm really glad we were able to draw you over to the dark side and switch over to civil service. That's been super. But the list just goes on and on and on. That's definitely been my favorite part of the journey, is getting to work with so many really talented, dedicated, passionate folks. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, ma'am. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that I feel like you're really living up to your call sign as Betsy Ross. For those of the folks out there who haven't actually heard that story, I'm not going to spoil it here. but I highly recommend hearing it sometime, maybe even over a cold beverage.
Absolutely.
It's a very cool story and nothing short of inspirational. It involves your initiative and innovation and your skill as a seamstress. So here again, you're taking the initiative by developing a vision for the base of the future, assembling a team to make that vision a reality, just like the quilt that you mentioned in your keynote, bringing all those pieces together to make an outstanding base of the future. Thank you for the honor of working with you and being a part of this rebuild that I think is going to end up changing lives and the way the Air Force thinks about the base of the future.
Lowell, thanks so much. And I just want to personally thank you for being such an amazing teammate. And I'm going to pass one of these over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am.
Y'all have a great day.
Okay, we're out here.